Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. If you're listening to the first time, welcome. This is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. And as always, I know if you're an avid listener, I know you're out there enjoying the run or the walk, or you're in the gym, or you're doing whatever, listening as you always do. You're sick of hearing this, but if you're new, go back and start from the beginning. Go back and start from episode 1. I know I say it every single episode, but I really do think you'll get more out of this podcast if you start from number 1. So, welcome. Anyway, so this week, following last week, where I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, I had a lot of messages from people saying, how they resonated with the episode, and how really what I was talking about is how everyone is now in this state of financial freedom. Not everyone, obviously, but there's many people. 8.5 million people in the UK have been furloughed. Okay, so what that means is they're in this state of financial freedom. When people think of what financial freedom is, it's essentially this. It's controlling your lifestyle costs, okay, so that you're living within your means. It's having really understanding what it is you want in life. So many people have realized that they don't need all the crap that they had before. This pandemic and this lockdown period has really forced people to radicalize and kind of get rid of all the crap that they didn't need. And they realize that actually they're quite happy without all the stuff that they had before, and they've really controlled their lifestyle costs. It's about having the things that you want and not the things that, the things that you need, and the things that you are inspired to have, but not the things that other people have. Because right now, we're in a place where there's no keeping up with the Joneses. There's no showing off your new car or your new gym membership or your new, nothing. You can't show anything off. You can't see anyone. So this pandemic's removed the keeping up with the Joneses, which is what wealthy people do. Wealthy people, true wealthy people, understand that you don't keep up with the Joneses. There's none of that. You control your lifestyle costs, and that's what people have been forced to do. On top of that, people on furlough, 8.5 million people in the UK are now on furlough, which is what? A passive income. It's pure passive income being funded to you without actually actively having to do anything. Now, or more importantly, you're choosing what you do. So you're getting up every day, and this is the final part of true financial freedom, getting up every day and actually having a 60,000 foot view on your life and what you want to do and what you choose to do. And you're thinking bigger, you're thinking longer term. You're actually giving yourself permission to think about what it is that you've always wanted to do, whether that's in your business, if it's systems, something you should have done before and you haven't ever really got around to doing it, you've never prioritized it, or maybe it's a new skill, new hobby, you're learning something new that you've always wanted to learn. You're putting that first, and you're managing to structure your day around things that you want to do and things that you love to do and things that you choose to do over the things that you ought to do or should do or need to do, and you're kind of prioritizing it in that order, and being at home is allowing you to do that. Now, I know everyone's not in that situation. I know there's plenty of people still working, there's key workers, there's NHS staff and there's postal workers and couriers and logistics and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying it's everyone, but I'm just saying there's many, many people that are getting a flavour for what real financial freedom is. This is a state of financial freedom. And I've had a lot of messages over the last week saying how their life is never going to be the same now because the way they've evaluated what they were doing before and what they're going to do going forward, it's going to completely shift the course of their financial destiny and their life and their health and everything. So it's been incredible to kind of witness this whole situation from kind of a holistic viewpoint. And just been blown away by some of the messages. But over the last few weeks, we've been talking about content and raising your personal brand. And I really wanted to base this particular episode off of a comment that I received from one of the guys who had listened to the podcast. And he wrote a post saying, I'll read it out. He said, just a reminder, this guy's been putting out his, trying to raise his social media, personal brand, getting his message out there. And one of the things he said was this: just a reminder, you will never please everyone. I'm here spreading the love and trying to help people achieve more body confidence and pride. And there's always someone who slates my messages. I'm not going to get bothered by these trolls. It's always challenging for me. I have no time or energy to rise to it. Onwards and upwards, people who do believe in me. And it really I replied to the message, to the comment there. But what you need to understand is this really reinforces something I said in an earlier episode, that just look, by the law of the universe, there's always going to be opposites, right? So people who, and this is going to be really powerful for those of you who have been thinking about doing anything, not just content or putting your message out there or social media, just anything. I want to shift your mind on how to think about this kind of stuff. Because just by the law of the universe, there's always opposites, all right? There's always going to be opposites. There's literally an opposite opinion to everything, right? And only an absolute maximum of 50% of people in the whole world will ever agree with your opinion. All right? And of course, the more you're able to raise your profile and the more you're able to spread that message, the more people you're going to reach. And obviously, the more people you reach, that 50% gets bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of quantity of people. Okay? So it goes from having 50% of 10 people, which is 5 people not liking you, to 50% of 1,000, which is 500 people not liking you, to 50% of 1,000,000, which is 500,000 people not liking you. And you can see how that can quickly have an impact on someone's mindset or approach to building momentum and carrying on with it and continuing to get their message out there. The thing is this: there is no right or wrong. There's absolutely no right or wrong. So you need to expect there to be negative perceptions and positive perceptions with every piece of content that you create and everything that you say. Every opinion you've got, there will be a negative perception and a positive perception. Because there will be. It's just impossible not to. So I want to just give you something to think about here, right? Let's just say, and I'm going along this kind of basis that there's no truth. There's no real truth. Every truth is a half truth, right? So there's no right or wrong. And no matter where you are, there's always going to be another side. And I'll explain what I mean, right? So think about a person who's just been called a bad name. Let's just say that you was called a bad name by someone and you look down on the person and you say, oh, that's a bad thing to do, right? So you perceive that to be bad and you're the victim. Now imagine the person that called you a name gets punched in the face by another person, right? Physical, smacked in the face. All right. Now, the person who threw the punch is now seen as bad to the person who called you a name. But to the person who threw the punch, the person that called you a name seems good. Right? Now, imagine the person who threw the punch gets killed by someone. And the punch thrower right? And the name caller, they now seem like decent people to the killer. The killer's now perceived to be the bad person. And then there's Hitler, mass murderer. Okay, to him, the killer looks like an angel. The person through shouted a name seems like an angel. And so on and so on and so on. And you can say the same for like hot and cold, right? Let's just give you another example. There's something that's hot and there's something that's perceived to be cold, and in between it's kind of warm. But at what point is it hot? What point is it warm? There's always going to be an upside and a downside. There's always going to be, a positive and a negative. So look, if you turn on the hot, let's just say that you turn on the radiator and you go, oh, that's hot. Okay. Well, what's hotter? Oh, you turn on the hot tap. Oh, that's really hot. Okay. That's 70 degrees. The radiator's 60 degrees. That's much hotter. Okay. So is the radiator cool compared to that? No. What about then the sun? Okay, is the radiator cool to the sun? And what about the sun's core? That's hotter than the sun's surface. And it goes on and on and on. And you can say the same for rich and poor, right? Because one of the comments that I got a little while ago was that they said something along the lines of the son was the kids at school were kind of taunting the kid because they said, look, your dad's rich, your dad's got money, you've got it all sorted for you, you don't have to worry. And they were picking on him for that, right? And what I said was, well, that kid, think about the royal family, okay? That kid who's perceived to be rich and have everything for him is a pauper and an absolute peasant compared to the royal family, right? And it goes on and on and on. Now, the kids that were taunting the boy for having a rich parent and having it all made up for him, well, they're seen as rich to starving children in Africa. Okay, they're seen as rich. So it goes on and on. There's no right or wrong. Everywhere along the scale, there is a half truth. There's two sides. Now, every time you create content, you are creating offensive content to 50% of the people, right? So when you think of it like this, if you just think, every time I say something and every time I'm going to produce a bit of content or explain my feelings or thoughts or opinions, 50% of the people listening are going to take offense in some way, or it's going to trigger them in some way, or they're just going to have the opposing opinion. And when you think like this, you find it very difficult to understand why people get so triggered with media and things happen in the news and so on. I've seen so many people like glued to the TV and glued following some story in the media about, some journalist or some politician, and they're like on them like a hawk, like watching their every move, updating the story, and they're getting so triggered and wound up about it. And God, it's like when you think like this, you realise that it's just a complete waste of time. There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong ever. And understand this, you cannot offend people. They can only take offence. So, therefore, expect 50% of people in the world to take offence at anything you say. And it's as simple as that. Everything you say, expect that. There's an opposing opinion to every opinion. And the bigger the 50% get, the more people that represents in the population, which means that the only thing you've got to do is absolutely never, ever, ever dim your light. Never, ever stop doing what you're doing. Never, ever stop, never stop and think, oh, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? Should I say that? Shouldn't I say that? If you believe it, go and do it. So that's really the message for this episode, guys, because it was a little kind of stumbling block and a mindset block, and I want to make sure that people are being true, being authentic, providing more value than anyone you know, being more giving, more receiving, and be always free. So that's it for this episode, guys. Until next week, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.